Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening. We now have a date for the reopening of our borders. From December 15, people will be able to enter the state if they're fully vaccinated and returned a negative COVID test within 72 hours of travel. The border plan allowing people from around the world and the country to once again visit Tasmania.
Loved ones reunited, more planes in the sky, and tourists returning to Tasmania. A date for these three things has now been set.
The date that we are reopening our borders is going to be the 15th of December. We are not going to turn back from that date.
By that date, the Premier says everyone above the age of 12 will have had the opportunity to be vaccinated, outlining the roadmap to reopening this afternoon. These are the restrictions currently in place. Tasmanians' vaccination rate hitting 70% earlier this week. Quarantine restrictions will remain as we reach 80%, a target currently expected to be reached in early November. Then finally, on December 15, the day we reopen, those who want to enter the state will need to be fully vaccinated and test negative within 72 hours of their travel. The exception will be Tasmanians who are double dosed, taking trips to the mainland less than 7 days long.
So if you want to go shopping in Melbourne, if you want to go and watch a horse race in Sydney.
Those rules also applying to international arrivals.
If you're coming back in from overseas and you're coming to Tasmania, you'll have the same rules as if you're coming out of Sydney or Melbourne or South Australia or Queensland.
Once borders reopen, Public Health will consider additional measures, releasing early modelling today outlining what could happen once COVID arrives in Tasmania.
These scenarios don't tell us exactly what will happen in Tasmania.
Under the worst case scenario, there would be an average of 387 cases daily and 214 deaths within 200 days.
This is the let it rip model. We are not going down that pathway.
Other scenarios taking into account increased restrictions, showing significantly better outcomes.
The health system is at crisis point under this government. So how can Tasmanians have confidence in this government to manage a COVID outbreak when our current health system isn't meeting current demand?
Authorities insisting our health system is prepared.
Health has been preparing and responding to COVID since January 2020 and stands ready to do what is needed to respond to COVID in Tasmania.
The Premier driving home three key messages.
We are opening, get vaccinated, and we are prepared.
Meg Sides, 7 Tasmania News.
And Meg joins us now. Now, Meg, what has changed in terms of restrictions today?
Well, Kim, many in the south of the state are now breathing a little easier. During the press conference this afternoon, Premier Peter Gutwein lifted the mask mandate in place, although those restrictions will still apply in certain settings like events and in hospitals. Those restrictions were brought into place over the weekend as a part of our 3-day snap lockdown. But the Premier has today also flagged it's unlikely we'll see another of that scale in Tasmania. Going forward, he says we'll see a more targeted approach, with maybe a shopping centre, school or single local government area being locked down to control the spread of the coronavirus. But Kim, the main message from the Premier today was for everyone to go out and get vaccinated, because our borders will open on December 15 regardless.
Well, today's announcement has come as a sigh of relief for Tasmanian businesses crippled by the effects of interstate COVID outbreaks. But they warn some of the restrictions may hamper future tourism.
After an almost agonising 2 years for businesses like Sapphire at Freycinet, December 15 will come as a breath of fresh air.
We've had about 60% occupancy through the winter period, so we're still going quite well in comparison to some other properties, but we'll be looking for about 20 new staff members to join the team.
But as the border reopening deadline fast approaches, the pressure is on to attract as many tourists into the state as possible to help operators make up for lost time.
They've struggled their way through to this point, and now's the point when they need to start reaping the rewards. And we know the demand is there. We know the desire to travel is there. We just need to firm up the borders and get people coming in.
The Chamber of Commerce says today's announcement strikes the right balance.
We would love the date to have been sooner, but the modelling shows that this is a good date. It's a date that's pragmatic, one that keeps the majority of Tasmanians safe.
But the Premier's roadmap out of COVID is provoking mixed reactions in the community.
I think that's fabulous. It'd be good to spend some time with family and have some family travel down, or being able to travel and see some family on the mainland, so looking forward to it.
Don't want all those people over here. At some point, the inevitable is going to happen. We're going to have to deal with the same things the rest of Australia has.
The state government has been under months of pressure to set a firm date for welcoming in the rest of the country, but some say the number of hoops visitors will need to jump through could be enough to turn them off making the trip south.
We will be living with an acceptance of vaccinations as being a part of, if you like, a right to enter in certain places and for certain people, but I think that's something we still need to explore it in industry and work that through.
One thing is for sure, December 15 will give Tasmanians a chance to enjoy life in the new normal. Ainsley Kosh, 7 Tasmania News.
A review of the Travelodge Hotel quarantine facility has found no definitive answer on how Tim Gunn escaped, leading to Southern Tasmania's 3-day lockdown. State Controller Darren Hine wrote in his report that Mr Gunn likely left via a fire escape while security staff were changing PPE. The 31-year-old claims he walked through the hotel front door, but the report found that was unlikely, with the entrance highly monitored by staff and CCTV. The incident has resulted in increased security, surveillance cameras and alarms being installed on fire escapes as well as other measures. A close friend of a woman allegedly killed by her daughter says the pair had a complicated relationship. Natalie Marr from Western Australia has denied killing her mother, Veronica Kostaufen, in Launceston in 2019.
David Nguyen became friends with Veronica Kostaufen while volunteering at the Wilderness Society. He would go over for dinner to her Keane Street house every second Wednesday. That fortnightly ritual continued when Miss Kostaufen's daughter Natalie Marr came to live with her in August 2019. On October 2, the night before Miss Kostaufen was allegedly murdered by Miss Marr, Mr Nguyen went over for dinner. He told the courtroom the trio were drinking wine and towards the end of the night there was a disagreement and some tension between the mother and daughter. I do remember Veronica storming to her bedroom. Mr Nguyen was also asked about how he would describe the pair's relationship. Bit of friction, since there was some history between them, just complicated. The jury also heard how Miss Marr asked Mr Nguyen to pick her up from the Keane Street address on Friday night, 2 days after the dinner, but that he didn't go inside. Nat mentioned that Veronica was upset. They went to Mr Nguyen's house where Miss Marr told him that she was upset with how her mother treated her. They drove back to Miss Kostaufen's house at 2 a.m. so Miss Marr could pick up her luggage after she revealed to him that she had booked a flight back to Western Australia. But again, Mr Nguyen didn't go inside and waited for her in his car for around 30 minutes. I just heard bins being open and closed and doors being open and closed. Defence lawyer Evan Hughes asked Mr Nguyen if he noticed any marks or injuries on Miss Marr when he picked her up, to which he replied no. He was also asked if the argument turned violent on the Wednesday night, to which he stated no. The trial continues next week. Letitia Wallace, 7 Tasmania News.
The search for a missing man and an overdue vessel on the northwest coast has continued for a 4th day. Authorities are yet to locate Thomas Corto and the yellow half cabin he left Wynyard in on Monday morning. The bodies of his 2 companions, Brianna Thomas and Isaiah Dixon, were found on Wednesday. The Westpac helicopter took to the skies again today as police asked the public not to enter the water due to rough conditions. The impact of bank closures in regional communities will be the focus of a new task force established by the federal government. Tasmania has lost 18 branches in the past 3 years, including the St Mary's Commonwealth Bank in May. The Regional Banking Task Force will meet for the first time in November. Tasmanians and South Australians are closer than ever, with a new route now officially taking to the skies. Virgin's first flight between Adelaide and Hobart touched down at 10 this morning with a full load of passengers. The service is operating 4 times a week. Tasmanian Irrigation is preparing to turn the taps on 29,000 megalitres of liquid gold in the Meander Valley. Farmers in the area have jumped at the chance for increased water surety, enabling huge upgrades to a soon-to-be implemented scheme.
The vast waters of Lake Huntsman, soon to help grow dreams all throughout the Meander Valley.
1,200 millimetres of rainfall in this area, something we need to harness.
It's going to create increased agricultural production, increased number of jobs right through the Meander Valley and northern Tasmania.
At a cost of $14 million, 11,000 megalitres will soon be added to the Greater Meander irrigation scheme, taking the total to 29,000. Flow to be taken up by farmers from Carrick to Chudley.
There's upgrades to existing pump stations, so to improve their ability to take water from the river. There's pipelines to be extended and new pipelines to be constructed to where the new demand is.
We need water. If we don't have water, we can't guarantee to finish off crops.
A dairy farmer himself, Meander Valley Mayor Wayne Johnston says the possibilities water surety can bring are endless.
As the new generation of farmers come through, they're looking to use their water more efficiently and more productively.
The network partly powered by mini hydro stations on the route. Those will be replaced, with another renewable also thrown into the mix.
Brand new solar installations that will go right beside our existing pump stations and allow us to not take as much energy from the grid.
This just one of many irrigation projects underway in the state, with the business case for the Northern Midlands scheme also approved this month. This program is scheduled for completion in the next 2 years. Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
Extinction Rebellion protesters are taking a radical approach to voice their message about food security in the age of climate change. The group launching a hunger strike on Parliament lawns today, with members taking one last bite of an apple to mark the beginning of it. They're doing it in a bid to increase awareness about the impact of global warming on the farming industry.
This one is a long, slow, painful burn to draw attention to the risks of famine and food security that will come with the climate crisis.
This is our last chance to make real climate action, and since then I've been really anxious.
The strike will last till 6 p.m. Thursday. The future of Evandale's Chamber Music Festival has been secured, with the state government committing $200,000 over 4 years. The popular classical music and arts showcase was cancelled earlier this year due to border restrictions, but this weekend organisers will host a scaled-down event.
We know lots of people are travelling up from Hobart to come to this because we've said make a weekend of it.
We know that regional events are absolutely critical for visitation in Tasmania. They're critical to underpin jobs.
An art exhibition will feature works from the late Tom Samek. Tasmania played host to a national event of a different kind today, with the Amateur Beer Brewing Championship taking place in Hobart. Judges from across the country sampling a number of home brews, with some potentially destined to become well-known brands.
Ale in a day's work. It might look like an early happy hour, but this was something far more serious. This group of beer lovers today poring over figures, descriptions and flavours from the nation's home brewers.
Professional brewers can enter, but it has to be a home brewed beer. So there's no restriction on who can enter whatsoever.
Tasmania hosting the National Amateur Championships for the first time in the competition's history. More than 200 beers making it to Hobart for consideration by their peers. From dark stouts to amber ales, each judge sampled more than 10 different brews.
Judge on aroma, appearance, flavour, mouthfeel and overall impression.
The overriding thing I would look for in a beer is it enjoyable overall.
New Norfolk's Welcome Swallow Brewery began its life as a home concoction. The owners were back judging the next generation.
I think it'll be very close from what we've judged already. Yeah, there's some good quality beer here.
Everyone having their own criteria for what makes a top drop.
Something that's refreshing, drinkable, no major faults. Just got to be good beer that you want to have another one of.
I like stronger beers. I'm very passionate about darker beers.
The glory of being a national champion and raising the bar also up for grabs.
To win the national or even place at the nationals is massive because you're up against really good standard of beers from all around.
John Hunt, 7 Tasmania News.
QV-Mag has unveiled a new exhibit of 12,000 endangered and extinct butterflies. The Lambkin Night collection was gathered over 50 years from areas stretching between Hobart and the Torres Strait Islands and donated to the museum for conservation last year.
It's important that we make sure the community can access their collections. So we'll be showing different parts of the collection over the next 4 weeks.
QV Mag is still in the process of fundraising for furniture to hold the butterflies, needing more than $50,000.
Launceston is bracing for a jam-packed run of cricket with 15 WBBL games crammed into just 9 days. The Hurricanes are feeling confident after a victory, but no one area continues to plague them. Buoyed by a thrashing of the Stars, the Hurricanes are hoping their purple patch will continue even in new territory. Tasmania's WBBL roadshow shifting north with 15 matches at UTAS Stadium in Invermay Park crammed into just over a week.
We're pretty excited, obviously it's a big week for us. We've got 5 games in 8 days.
Their first tomorrow against the undefeated Strikers, an outfit boasting 2 South African internationals as well as the red-hot Talia McGrath.
It's not only they're top order with the bat, but they've got some real weapons with the ball as well.
Molly Strano has the WBBL in a spin, the league's leading wicket taker, while Rachel Priest is the top run scorer. Though by the skipper's own admission, her blazing century in the last match did come as a surprise.
I sort of felt like I could pretty much hit the ball anywhere that day, which is really nice. I wish I got into that zone a little bit more often.
But she recognises it won't always happen, and the coach wants the rest of the batters to step up.
We've got to make sure that we're building those partnerships through the start and through the middle phase, leaving some wickets at the back end for us so we can really explode and get those competitive totals.
The match will begin at 10:15 tomorrow, the first of 4 games across the weekend. Meanwhile, locally, the NTFA is continuing to grow, with St Pat's entering an under-18s team for the first time in the club's 90-year history. It's off the back of a new agreement with the Prospect Hawks, offering junior players a direct pathway to the senior ranks. Club bosses believe the move will keep more teenagers in the game.
The fact they can go from that 16 to 18 group gives them 2 years grounding before they come into senior football.
There's a lot of young prospect kids that are dropping out at a certain age, and we're hoping that this will be a really good platform for them to kind of keep working on.
The coach says he's speaking to a dozen players ahead of pre-season. And with the Burnie 10 on this Sunday, tonight's Friday flashback is to the 1990 edition of the race. While the Commonwealth Games champion blew away the field, another battle was taking place. The win coming only weeks after Burnie won a battle of a different kind.
A thunderbolt struck 2 of Tasmania's fiercest rivals in 1990 when the Advocate's publisher took over the Examiner, bringing the pair under the same ownership for the first time.
To some media observers, that'll be the end of a fiercely competitive era between the state's 2 northern newspapers.
A story ironically broken by the Mercury.
It was a sad day for the Examiner and the Advocate because we beat them to the story. We scooped them. Great delight. Fascinating.
A month later, the competition returned to the back page of the paper. In Advocate territory, the 1990 Burnie 10 saw 1,200 runners make a clean break. Tasmanians Stephen Foley and Mark Matthews were prominent early on, battling a typically fierce coastal headwind. But at the turn, Andrew Lloyd took the lead. Lloyd was the race favourite for a reason. A Burnie 10 winner in 1986, he'd just come off a sensational gold medal at the 1990 Commonwealth Games in Auckland. As the gap widened, the roar lifted because the race record was within reach. Only just, Lloyd snipped less than a second off Steve Monaghetti's record time.
The whole crowd, the local crowd here is just amazing. They just started cheering and yelling.
While Jenny Lunn smashed the women's record by a whopping 20 seconds.
I knew I'd be able to run around about that time, so when I was coming down the home straight, I thought I'd put a little bit more in.
The following year's efforts would focus on enticing Robert De Castella to Burnie, a mission which proved successful, as the prestigious race continued to morph into one of the nation's top athletics drawcards. Tom Johnson, 7 Tasmania News.
Good evening. Strawn the high, 23 in the west today, Hobart 21, Launceston 19, Burnie a bit cooler with 15 and Devonport 17 degrees. Bushy Park recorded 22, Grove 21, Flinders Island 19 today, Friendly Beaches 18, Smithton and Low Head 17 degrees, King Island and St Helens 16. Best rainfall today was 11 millimetres at Fisher River as scattered showers spread throughout as this cloud band hit the state. More also affecting eastern Victoria and coastal South Australia, parts of Queensland experiencing thunderstorms. Tomorrow the front crosses in the morning, quickly followed by a trough. A high drifts over the bight with a trough over New South Wales and Queensland and into the Territory. Wind south-southwesterly at 15 to 25 knots, lighter over the lakes. Strong wind warning from southeast Cape to Wineglass Bay. And we have a minor flood warning for the South Esk and a flood watch for remaining rivers in the north, the east and the south. Let's see what the weekend holds out for us. Rain, possibly heavy falls for Hobart, 15 degrees, just 13 for Maydena and also 13 for Oatlands. For Launceston, rain, possible heavy falls, 18 the maximum, 18 for Devonport, some heavy falls for Lyoweeney as well, a top of 11 degrees, 18 for Burnie with rain easing, some heavy falls in the west, Strawn 15 and Marrawar 14 degrees, St Helens a high of 16 with rain, some heavy falls for Swansea 15, 15 also for Orford. Let's forget about that forecast. UV as high as 7 over the north tomorrow. On Sunday, rain across the state again, heavy falls over the southeast and lower east, not so much over the northwest. Strong and gusty southwesterly winds on Monday, bringing showers mainly to the south, east and central areas. And on Tuesday, conditions clearing with winds becoming light and variable. Mostly sunny in Perth, a morning shower for Adelaide, showers in Melbourne, late showers and storms forecast for Canberra and Sydney. They're also developing over Brisbane with 31 there. And currently the conditions are cloudy, and Kim, it would be remiss of me to not give you a tip for the Cox Plate tomorrow.
Very remiss. What is it? Not getting it, am I? He's gone. He's left the building. Thanks, Merv. And that is all your news for now. Have a great night. Letitia and Tom will be with you over the weekend. For now, good night.